In today's video, we're going to take a look at 10 annuals that I think are the most beneficial to add to your garden if you're looking to attract butterflies, and of course with butterflies often comes hummingbirds to the garden. Hi, I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings, and we are a mail order company. We ship plants all over the United States. So if any of these plants we're looking at today are of interest to you, you can head to our website, gardencrossings.com, to check them out. Let's go ahead and dig in and check out these plant varieties that I think are the best for adding or attracting the butterflies to your garden. First on the list, we're going to look at Clomi, and specifically Clomi Senorita Rosalita. A lot of the varieties that I've chosen are also more tall or more upright type varieties, ones that will be more thriller type plants in your garden, just to kind of get the color up and off the ground. And Clomi Senorita Rosalita does just that. It'll get 2 to 4 foot tall depending on where you're at. So for those of us here in the north, we're going to probably get more around 2 foot. But for those of you further in the south or in warmer climates, you have a longer growing season, and therefore those plants can get up to 4 foot tall for you. They like to be grown in full sun locations, and the Senorita Rosalita, it's a sterile Clomi. And so what that means for you is that's a plant that has no job to produce seeds at all. So all of its energy goes into producing flowers. The more flowers you have, the more there is that will attract those butterflies to the garden. They add such beautiful dramatic height to the garden. We found that they're quite wind tolerant as well. We plant them out front in our landscapes, and there's a lot of wind that comes whipping across the cornfields towards us, and they hold up beautifully all summer long. In addition to that wind, they also are a very drought tolerant plant. Next on the list is the Kfia Vermillion. And for those of you that are familiar with Vermilion, I'm sure you're just going, yep, that is a great plant for attracting butterflies and hummingbirds to the garden. In fact, it's one that I would say is a must-have plant if you're wanting those butterflies and those hummingbirds. Kfia Vermillion gets about 18 to 28 inches tall and wide, and it forms a nice mounding habit. It has beautiful orange tubular flowers that just cover that plant. And if you're familiar with butterflies and hummingbirds at all, you know that quite often they are attracted to flowers that have kind of that tubular shape to them. The beautiful thing with Kfia Vermillion is you do not need to deadhead or pick at the flowers to keep it blooming all summer long. Next on the list, this is kind of a whimsy fun variety. It is the Truila Pink Gamina, and this is just one of those plants you kind of tuck here and there and everywhere in the garden and just kind of watch these beautiful bubblegum ball-shaped flowers just kind of dance in the breeze. This plant gets about 28 inches tall, so just a little bit over 2 foot, and about 28 or so inches wide as well. It forms a nice upright habit. It likes to be planted in full sun. And like I mentioned, those globe-shaped flowers, it's just so pretty to kind of watch them as they're blowing in the breeze. It's an easy to grow annual, and it's also drought tolerant once it's established. Next on the list is Heliotrope Austa Lavender. So this is a new variety. I think we've had it now for 3, maybe 4 years or so. And when we first got this variety in, I think the thing that really drew myself to it is the fragrance of the flowers. Now, in my opinion, they kind of smell like, if you're from the 80s, if you're an 80s child, you'll know what I'm talking about with those scratch and sniff stickers that smelled like grape. That's what I feel like the Heliotrope smells like. This plant gets about 24 inches tall and 24 inches wide, creating a nice mounding type habit. It likes to be grown in full sun locations, and it too is a nice drought tolerant annual. Next on the list is Lantana. And Lantana, again, is just one of those plants. If you have Lantana in your garden, you're sure to have those butterflies and the hummingbirds. The variety we're featuring here is the Luscious Pink Berry Blend. But as you may know, Lantana come in a wide variety of colors. There's white, there's yellow, there's pinks, there's reds, there's purples, and then there's a mix of all those colors together. So really, I feel like Lantana is the perfect plant that you'll find just about any color of Lantana to mix well with whatever your color scheme is. Lantana gets about 20 to 24 inches tall, and I'm going to say that's how tall they get here in Michigan. I'm sure for those of you in the South, again, that have that longer growing season, and for you, they might be a perennial. They may grow year around, but for us in Michigan, they die in the fall once it gets cold. But if you are in those warmer climates, you may find that your Lantana will get much taller than 24 inches tall. Lantana likes to be grown in full sun locations. It's a drought-tolerant annual once it's established. It does not like the cold. It will definitely, it'll be done if it gets zapped by the cold. And it too is a deer-resistant plant. Next on the list is pentas. We're looking at the Sunstar Red. Pentas come in a lot of colors. They come in red, pinks, roses, and lavenders. So again, quite a spectrum of color on the pinky purple range of colors. They get about 18 to 22 inches tall and wide. They're kind of a nice mounding plant, fairly dense in habit, large flower clusters. So it's not like you're getting a bunch of little whimsy flowers here and there. You're getting big flower clusters. So it's a very dense or heavy looking flower with a lot of color. They bloom all summer, as do most annuals, and pentas like to be grown in full sun to part sun locations. They also make a great cut flower. Next we have the salvia. We're looking here at the unplugged So Blue variety. So we carry a lot of varieties of salvia. We have the unplugged series, we have the rockin' series, there's pinks, there's purples, there's light blues, dark purples, just various shades, pink and purple, of salvia. And salvia are, again, another one of those, really these are all must-have plants, but salvia is a plant we plant in mass out in our Proven Winner Signature Gardens here at Garden Crossings, because with us having our butterfly house where we raise the monarch butterflies, we want to make sure that we have plenty of plants out in the landscape that these butterflies are going to enjoy. And definitely they enjoy going to any of the salvias that we have out in the garden. Unplugged So Blue gets about 14 to 24 inches tall. Kind of depend on, again, where you're at. In the north or further in the south, you may notice that they get a little bit taller. They like to be grown in full sun to part shade locations. The Unplugged So Blue has beautiful, beautiful purple flower spikes, and it's a favorite of the pollinators. It too is a deer-resistant variety. Up at the Northern Michigan Garden where we have gardens, we have salvia planted all around and the deer do not touch them. So a great variety not only for the butterflies and the hummingbirds, but something you don't typically have to worry about the deer browsing on as well. Next, we have Verbina Meteor Showers. And here, this is again another very fun, whimsy type filler annual that you can just kind of poke anywhere into the garden and it'll just kind of do its thing and play well with other plants, blow in the breeze, fill in little gaps. It gets about 20 to 30 inches tall, so it is a taller variety of Verbena. It likes to be grown in full sun locations, drought tolerant, deer resistant. I know I'm checking here a lot of boxes for some of you, and I do. I just love the whimsiness of this plant in the garden. You may find that it does self-seed in places, which is great if you're looking to create a beautiful butterfly oasis with lots of plants that the butterflies will enjoy. But if you don't want their little seedlings, they're very easy to remove and pull out. Next, we have zinnias. Zinnias, again, the height on zinnias is going to vary. So there is a ton of zinnia varieties out there. Some are short, some are tall, some are really tall. We carry the Zahara series, and they get about 16 to 20 inches tall. So kind of a nice mid to shorter variety of zinnia. This is a staple in our butterfly house because we know that the butterflies love going to these zinnias. And the reason why I like to plant them too is they come in a wide array of colors: pinks, whites, oranges, yellows, even a little bit of reds. So quite a spectrum of color if you're looking to add lots of fun, cheerful color to the garden. Zinnias like to be grown in full sun locations, and they are also a deer and rabbit resistant annual. So that's great for those of us that have the deer and the rabbits in our gardens. Once they are established, they are drought tolerant. Also, too, one thing to point out is they come in different flower forms. So they come in both a single flower and a double flower. Usually I find the single flowers tend to be a little bit more attractive to the pollinators and the butterflies because it's not as hard for them to find that pollen. And last on the list is milkweed. So milkweed can be an annual or a perennial depending on what type of milkweed that you have. So for us here in Michigan, we do grow both perennial and annual milkweed varieties, but I'm going to be talking specifically on the annual varieties of milkweed. So the reason why I like the annual milkweed varieties is number one, lots of foliage, and which also translate to lots of food for the monarch butterfly caterpillars. So there's a lot of substance to each of those plants, and when you're raising monarchs, it's very important that you have plenty of food source for them. The other thing I like about the annual milkweed is that they bloom all summer long. So for us that have the perennial milkweed, I'm thinking Asclepias tuberosa in specific, usually it blooms for maybe 4 weeks or so. And then once the flowers are done, it goes to seed, and it's seed in its seed pods. But with the annuals, we don't often here in Michigan get them to go to seed. They just continue to keep flowering all summer long. Now there's going to be some people that are going to probably argue with me and say that, you know, annual milkweed is not good. But for us in the north, they died back in the fall, so we don't have to worry about things that maybe people in the south worry about with growing and raising monarchs with those annual milkweed plants. So hopefully this gave you a little inspiration as to what you can plant in your garden if you are looking to attract butterflies and hummingbirds to the garden. These are definitely, if you came to me and said, Heidi, what are the plants you would recommend if I can only get 10? What are the 10 plants that I should put in my garden to get these butterflies to come? This would be the 10 I would tell you. There's a good range of colors, good range of textures. There's so many different things about these plants that you could plant them all together and have a beautiful looking garden with just so much color, so much texture, and just so much fun. And really the fun comes once those butterflies come and find your plants in your garden. If you have any questions or comments on any of the plants we talked about today, please feel free to leave your comments below. I'll make sure that I get to them and get them answered for you. If you're new to our station, we welcome you to subscribe. And if there's any plants that are of interest to you and you can't find them locally, you can head to our website, gardencrossings.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.